Shall we do what we normally do
Yes.
Yeah.
and take ourselves into a receptive state? Let's take 3 deep breaths together. And with a deep in breath. Shanti, shanti, shanti. Well, Susan, we've moved on.
I see that. We're in the fifth agreement.
We've finished the first 4 agreements. Now we're in the 5th one.
Okay.
So
All
why
right.
don't we just see if we still have any recollection of what the first 4 agreements
Mhm.
are. The first one is be
Impeccable with
Impeccable with your word.
word.
right. And the second one is don't
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 take
take
anything
anything personally.
personally.
take anything. And the third one is
Don't make assumptions.
Make assumptions.
I knew that one. And the fourth one is always
Please
Do your
do
best.
your best.
do your best. We'll look at chapter 8, and the 5th agreement is be skeptical, but learn to listen. Be skeptical, but learn to listen. And we had a little pushback on this one last week, which I thought was interesting. Someone was skeptical about this teaching, actually, which is just the teaching is telling us. And actually, we'll see how the author agrees that, yeah, we ought to be skeptical about what this teaching is, among other things.
Mhm.
So why be skeptical? And what does it mean to learn to listen? Let's talk about listening first. Respect is so important. Respect for others. You already have the awareness that all artists live in their own dream. Don Miguel Ruiz calls each of us artists because, in a certain sense, we've created our reality just by what we've agreed to accept as being true from the time we were kids. So, in a sense, we're artists, and each one has created a separate reality. And we might conceive of that reality, what's true for us, as a dream, in the sense that it's something that lives in our minds. So he's taught this before. You already have the awareness that all artists live in their own dream, in their own world. Each of us lives in our own world. In that world, whatever they perceive is truth for them, is truth. And it could be that it's absolutely true for the other artists who are expressing their story. So other people, whether they are expressing their story or talking about someone else's story, it could be that it's absolutely true. For everyone else we come into contact with is telling us a story about themselves or about others. So in that world, whatever people perceive is truth for them. And we can understand that when we talk to people, because often people are very strong in what they have to say. They're speaking the truth. And often people don't think we know the truth. They want to tell us what their truth is. maybe they haven't got to the place where they have the space for different people to have different truths. But their truth is not the truth for you. The only truth for you is what you perceive in the world. So each of us has our truths based on what we perceive and, of course, on the agreements that we make with ourselves as to what is true, and all those thoughts we store away in our heads, the habits we make. With this awareness, there's nothing to prove to anyone. It's not about being right or wrong. You respect whatever somebody says because it's another artist speaking. That's why respect is so important. I think this can be tough sometimes, especially in a political season like ours, where so many of us are divided in what our truths are. How can we respect someone who's saying something it seems like just utter nonsense or just flies in the face of what we've experienced? How can we respect somebody like that?
But not being respectful compromises our truth. I watched that on TV, and when you have somebody who's being totally disrespectful, I don't care what they're saying. It doesn't sound like truth to me. So they're, shooting yourself in the foot.
Yes. So what you're saying is when we're not respectful, in a sense, we dissolve the respect that we deserve for our own truth.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like love. The more you love, the more love you seem to experience and receive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think respect is like that, but it's tough. It's tough. So let's see, what do we do here when somebody else says something and they're just an artist speaking their truth and we want to respect them? When you learn to listen, you show respect for other artists. So that's the second part of this agreement. Be skeptical, but learn to listen. You show them respect for their art, what they've created. It's just their creation. You can respect it without agreeing with it. You can respect it by agreeing to some of it, but not all of it. And the way you do that is by just listening. That's how we can show respect. That's the respect that we didn't experience during the first presidential debate, remember?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
There's a lack of respect. How did it show up? An unwillingness to listen, an unwillingness to hear.
Or to allow the other person to speak.
Right. So by not allowing the other person to speak, by interrupting, you're not willing to listen, which shows a lack of respect.
But I guess I'm just thinking at this point in time, I have been taught to be respectful, and that tends to override an awful lot of what I'm hearing. So I've got to learn to listen to other people who are being disrespectful, but possibly saying some truth in there too, which is what you're just saying.
So there's the tough one, right? How can you show respect for a disrespectful person?
Right.
And still keep your integrity
Right.
and sense of personhood? The tough part there is, I think, the second agreement, don't take anything personally.
Right. Right. Your ego gets wrapped up in there someplace.
Your ego, oh, they're disrespecting me. I'm taking this personally.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
The easiest thing to do is just turn them off when they come on.
Well, that's been what I've done, but I also feel like I am limiting myself when I do that.
Right,
And even if I don't turn it off, I turn it off emotionally.
right.
Uh, I quit listening.
The
And
second debate, I gave 5 minutes to that person, and after about the fifth lie, I turned it off.
yeah, well, I find I have to do that to protect myself too.
Yeah,
But I also feel like that there's information out there that I'm missing because of the fact that I can't suck it up and hear through
right.
the disrespect.
Well, I think it was important that everybody listened to the first debate and saw that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I did. I was glad whoever listened to it saw that. But I think what they saw, rather than the content, which there was none, was the disrespect.
The disrespect. I applaud you folks. I could only watch about 5 minutes of it, and the disrespect overwhelmed me, and I turned it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's the agreement: be skeptical, but learn to listen. So learn to listen. Does that mean we have to listen to all the things that are out there that are coming up?
I don't know. I mean, maybe we need to develop the talent of cutting through the BS to get to the content.
Yeah, I made the mistake, I guess, of turning the second one off after 5 minutes I listened to Biden, not Trump. But I think I didn't give Savannah Guthrie a chance. I thought she was just, a lightweight. Comes to find out, she's an attorney, and she's the only one that has held his feet to the fire. And she did it consistently. I heard her do it once in that debate, that town hall, and she did it numerous times, made him realize that what he was saying wasn't true. And, so she was very good. So I think, you miss finding out who can actually bring out or try to bring out the truth in somebody. Of course, he rolled over her anyhow, what she was saying, but there are people who can handle him. For her to do it surprised me.
Mm-hmm.
And some
And
people were
also,
saying that they were, saying that it was not a good thing that NBC gave him time at the same time. But some people were saying that they knew she could handle him, and that's why they did it. So I don't know.
What I'm hearing is this learn to listen has many ramifications.
Right.
When he
And I
talks,
didn't listen. I saw just bits and pieces later on. I saw her do it once personally, and then I heard about it.
when I read this, what I read is there's two people talking to each other.
mm-hmm.
In that kind of situation, this agreement seems pretty ironclad. Be willing to listen, learn to listen, and show respect to the person that you're having an interaction with. They know you're there and you know they're there. But there's another dimension to it, which we've been talking about, and that is listening to things remotely.
Mm-hmm.
So when we listen to things remotely, are we showing those remote figures who don't know we're there, we're just from a distance, do we show them respect for their art, for their creation? And is that something we want to do? I'm not sure. So we can be skeptical about what's on the screen here and, and look to see what our truth is. That's what he's going to say in a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
All artists have the right to create their art in whatever way they want. Joe Biden is an artist, he can create it. Donald Trump, all the rest, they have the right to create their art in whatever way they want. They have the right to believe whatever they want to believe. They have the right to say what they have to say.
Mm-hmm.
They got the right to believe it. They got the right to say it. But if you don't learn to listen, you'll never understand what they're saying.
Yep, that's the big one.
So we need to do some listening just to understand what they're saying. Boy, that's tough for me. I remember in years past, even when Obama spoke, somehow I just didn't want to listen to the whole thing. And George W. Bush and so on. So if I don't learn to listen, I don't understand what they're saying. And I didn't.
Mhm.
So do we want to understand what they're saying? That's what it comes to as well.
Yeah, there's danger there.
We want to understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
If I want to, I need to listen.
Mhm.
Listening is so important in communication, particularly one-on-one. When you learn to listen, you know exactly what other people want. So this is particularly true on one-on-one. You know exactly what other people want if you learn to listen. Once you know what they want, what you do with that information is up to you. Someone wants something. You can react or not react. You can agree or not agree with what they say. And that depends on you. We've already learned before about our reactionary nature and learned some tricks to react or not react between stimulus and response. There is a space. And in that space lies your freedom. Famous saying. So we can choose to react alone or not react, agree or not agree. That depends on us. Just because other people want something, that doesn't mean you have to give them what they want.
Right. And uh, not feeling guilty about not giving them what they want is a challenge for me sometimes.
Yes, it is. Also, let me guess that we together, all of us, have a certain belief. Let's see what this, if it's true for you as it is for me. Sometimes my experience of others is if I listen to them asking for something, telling me what they want, asking me to give it to them, by listening, I'm assuming that they think I'm willing to do that. By not disagreeing, by not interrupting, I believe I may be giving them the impression that I'm willing to do whatever they request. And sometimes I experience that. I just listen.
Mm-hmm.
Someone requests something and I'm listening and don't say anything. They say, well, is that great? Sounds like you're going to do it, what I want you to do. And then I have to say either yes, okay, or no, or I'm going to think about it.
Yeah. That's where respect comes in declining an invitation. you know, is giving back the respect, but declining in a respectful manner.
Yes. That's an art, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
What
It
do you
is.
mean by declining an invitation? Meaning by not joining in the conversation or?
No, by somebody wants something, you can tell them no with respect and not tell them that they're wrong for asking or that they're wrong for wanting, but it's just not going to work for me.
Okay.
I've had occasion to do that too. And it's not going to work for me. It would be a good way to say it. Another way to say it is that I've used is, I hear exactly what you're saying. And
Mm-hmm.
hear exactly what you're requesting, what you want. It's really crystal clear to me. There's no doubt in my mind. However, I'm not willing to do it. I want you to understand that I'm not willing to do this. And what's the statement that comes back invariably after you say I'm not willing?
Why?
Why?
Why not? You could do it if you wanted to, if you loved me.
Why?
What's your excuse?
Well, if you fall into the trap of starting to answer why, you've had it. Might as
Yeah,
well go jump off the pier because you're done for.
yeah. But you know what you just said in that I hear what you're saying is that's so wise, but especially people, but especially women, mostly want to be heard
Yeah.
and want to know that somebody has heard them. So that's really helpful.
When you say, I hear what you're saying and I understand it, and it's really clear, I've been listening to every word, what you're doing is showing respect.
Right.
So that's often half the battle.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, when you respectively decline and you invariably get why, why not? Why? What I do is I just say, I hear you'd like to know why. I got it. So I got your question about wanting to know why, but I just want you to know something about me. I'm just not willing to do it.
Mm. Yeah, that takes courage to say that.
So I try to keep acknowledging that I'm listening and hearing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I just stick with my position. And one time when I had a request, I put it even stronger. I said, I want you to know something. I am resolved not to do this. I
Yeah.
have promised myself I will not do this, and therefore I'm just not willing. I'm sorry.
And you're not getting defensive, and that's a good thing because that leads nowhere good.
No, that's why and whose fault it is.
Right. Right.
So these are all skills that we learn through the school of hard knocks, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So just because other people want something, it doesn't mean you have to give them what they want, but it is important to listen with respect. Try and find things to say that don't bring up guilt or lead to explanations.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't learn to listen, you will jump to conclusions and react like it's your dream when it's not your dream.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not listening, if you're interrupting, that means you're jumping to conclusions, you're not really hearing them. And somehow it's like it's your dream, but it's not. So you're not willing to participate in their dream, the way things are. And when you have somebody with whom you just can't understand how they act and how they behave, it's a tough to see that their dream has just as much validity as yours when it just seems so inappropriate.
You're right. Wrong.
Wrong. Uh,
But that takes us back to the what you were just saying is don't make assumptions, because if you don't listen, then you're making assumptions.
you're making assumptions just like Henry Higgins did in My Fair Lady.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't a woman be like me?
Or be more like a man. Right.
Like a man.
Yeah.
That's a great song.
It is. It is. Mm-hmm.
Now, Don Miguel is going to shift boots a little bit. He's been talking about listening. Now he's going to get into be skeptical. Talk about that a little bit. Right now, I'm sharing the way that I perceive the world, the way I dream, and my stories are truth for me. But I know they are not the real truth, so don't believe me.
Hmm.
All these things I put up on the screen that I copied from his book, now he says they're not the real truth, so don't believe me. So why am I bothering you?
Oh, I think that's the way you read it. It's not don't believe me. It's
True.
don't believe me.
So in a
Go.
sense, he's saying, don't believe me, but let's get into that. Whatever I tell you is just my point of view. Of course, from my point of view, I'm sharing the truth with you. My point of view. And I'm sharing the truth with you, he says. He says, I do my best to use words in the most impeccable way so that you can understand what I'm saying. So he's hoping people will listen. You've all been listening. So you can understand. But he says, even if I share an exact copy of the truth with you, I know that you will distort my message as soon as it goes from my mind into yours. So here we go. Whatever we read, whether it's the truth or not, we take in whatever we hear based on our points of view. And that's what we've expressed as we've heard this. We've heard our points of view, which always slightly alter what we hear. So in a way, he doesn't need to say, don't believe me, because we interpret everything with our own point of view, our own position. He says, you will hear the message and tell yourself the same message in a completely different way, or partially different way, according to your point of view. So if we can see that about ourselves, that what we hear, we interpret based on who we are, our points of view, our truths, this helps us understand that other people do the same thing. So when we're interacting with others, our story, what's obvious to us, what's appropriate for us, if we choose to communicate that, others may just hear it differently, totally differently. I had an experience of that with a technical issue. There's a database program that we use in church. And in this database program, not to get too technical, there are tables. And within a table, there are views. So you can look at the contents of the table in different ways, different parts of the table. And someone said to someone, well, I'm going to add a new table to this database. And the response was, well, if you're going to change the views, be careful how you change the views. So here was a request to change some tables, and the response was, well, be careful what you do with the views.
Oh, somebody wasn't listening.
Well, it just wasn't in their reality. And later on, when I sent an explanation as to what the different structures were in a database, they said, oh my God, I just, that wasn't in my awareness at the time. So it was an example of how we hear a message, tell ourselves the same message in a different way, according to what's true for us. And maybe you've had that experience where someone tells you something and later on someone says, well, why didn't you get it? You misunderstood it. You realize, oh my gosh, I misunderstood.
Because it comes through your experience. maybe at some point in time, one of those people that you're talking about had problems with the view. And they just wanted to make sure that when you were in there messing with a table, don't touch the view.
Well, the views belong to this person.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
person was very concerned that those views that they had carefully crafted were going to be screwed up.
Right. Exactly right.
That was her concern. That was where she was coming
Yeah.
from.
Yeah. Right. So you were communicating and you knew enough to be able to communicate that properly, and people walked away okay with it.
Everybody walked away okay in the end. Yeah, it was just a
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
But sometimes when there's emotional stuff going on,
Right.
one thing is said and another thing is heard depending on her point of view.
Mhm.
So just recognizing that's the way things are. He says, then perhaps what I say is the truth or not the truth. All the things you've been reading. He says, maybe it's the truth, maybe it's not. But perhaps what you believe is not the truth, whether what he's saying is truth or not.
Hmm.
This is where we can learn the habit of being a little skeptical. I have a little exercise in a couple of minutes. We'll play with this.
Okay.
I'm only one half of the message. You're the other half. I'm responsible for what I say, but I'm not responsible for what you understand.
Ooh, boy.
This is partially true, I think, because when I'm speaking, if I'm careful to listen when I'm speaking, listen to what I'm saying, and listening to the energy with which what I'm saying is received, I can intuit whether or not I'm being understood to a certain extent.
Mhm.
But sometimes you can't. Sometimes you just do your best and energy seems okay. So I'm responsible for that, but I'm not responsible for what others understand. You're responsible for what you understand. You are the one who gives meaning to what you hear. So if any of these teachings land with you, you're the one who will give some meaning to it. If they don't land with you, well, that's okay too. You can use what you hear if you want to blame me. You could if you want to. Like, who the hell does he think he is? I don't believe in being skeptical. I believe in being wise. This guy's got it wrong. Not healthy to be skeptical. Sounds wrong to me. He's wrong. We can blame him. We can blame somebody else. Steve's fault for presenting all this stuff. You can blame yourself. Oh my God, what's wrong with me? Why didn't I get it? You can blame your religion. You can be angry with everybody, mainly with yourself. So this is one set of choices we could use for what we hear. On the other hand, you can also use what you hear to find the truth and to find yourself. You can use what you hear to make peace with yourself. You can use what you hear to perhaps change the message that you deliver to yourself. And that's the little exercise we'll do. Whatever you do with my words is up to you. It's your dream, and I respect your dream, he says. So can we be that way with others? Can we hear others' words and respect their dream? You don't have to believe me, but If you learn to listen, you can understand what I'm saying. And if the information makes sense, then you can make it part of your dream. If it makes sense. Take whatever works for you and use it to modify your dream. What doesn't work for you, just ignore it. And as we do all this spiritual work, sometimes something makes sense for us now. We ignore the rest, and another time we may hear the same thing again, and now that works for us. So what works for us changes over time as we change. So we may ignore different things at different times, depending on our receptivity and our readiness. That's all good. We're just doing our best, always doing our best.
You know, those aha moments, it always amuses me because I, I realize they're things I've heard for years and years and years and years, and I never really heard. That's just funny.
Oh, yeah. He says, I make the assumption that you want to become a better artist, and that's why you're challenging your beliefs. Don't believe me, don't believe anybody else, but especially try not to believe yourself and just learn to be a little skeptical. Not believing yourself is a huge advantage because most of what you learn, well, may not be the truth.
Mm.
It's a huge advantage. Everything you know, your whole reality is nothing but symbols, all those stories in your mind. Because you are not that bunch of symbols. You are not. They talk in your head. You know that. And that's why you're skeptical and you don't believe yourself. Because you're not your mind that talks to you. You are something else. Can you see the consequences of believing yourself? Believing yourself is one of the worst things you can do. If your beliefs are telling you I'm fat, I'm old, they don't like me, I'm not good enough, then don't believe yourself because it's not true. Be skeptical and use the power of doubt to challenge every message you deliver to yourself. Is it really true that I'm not respected? They're not respecting me. Is it really true? Or am I taking it personally? The truth is, there are no ugly people.
Hmm.
There's no good enough or strong enough. There's no universal book of law where any of these judgments are true. These judgments are just agreements that humans make. If you're suffering, it's because you obey the tyrant that's ruling your head. When the tyrant obeys you, when there's no longer a judge or a victim, in your mind, you won't be suffering any longer. The tyrant, when the mind listens to you. Well, we got a couple of minutes. I want to do a little exercise to see if this
Sure.
lands for us.
Mhm.
All good ideas, but it's all been filtered by our point of view. So who knows what stuck and what didn't.
Okay.
The power of doubt. Here we go. Would you be willing to check if there are any negative concepts still lurking in your mind? Would you be willing to check if there are, or maybe just one negative concept still lurking in your mind? Let's not plan on ridding ourselves of them today, just noticing them.
Okay.
So here we go. Should be pretty easy. Any ideas? What's the best way of going about this?
addressing it, bringing it up, acknowledging it, seeing it.
I have a little technique we can use to acknowledge and see it. Let's see if it works for us. You ready?
Uh-huh.
Here we go. The power of doubt. Ask yourself, who is someone I aspire to be more like? Who is someone I aspire to be more like? Pick the first person that comes to mind. Doesn't matter. First person. Got someone?
Mhm.
Someone I aspire to be like. First person. Ask yourself, what is a particular quality they have that I aspire to have more of? What's a particular quality they have that I aspire to have more of? For this exercise, just name one. Some quality. Ask yourself, if I don't have enough of this quality, what am I naming myself? If I don't have enough of this quality, what am I naming myself? And just notice the first name that comes up for you. If I don't have enough of this quality, what am I naming myself? What's the first name that comes up for you? Now ask yourself, what would I name myself if I had more of this quality? What would I name myself if I had more of this quality? And notice the name that comes up. Well, folks, we don't need to intellectualize over it. This is just sort of a stream of consciousness thing. Om Shanti. And that's the end of the exercise.
That's good.
I have a couple more slides to close. Any sharing you'd like to do before we close?
It's a really good thing to do is if you see a deficiency of some sort, just mentally turn it around to the exact opposite and declare it.
Yes.
See what happens.
That's what we did, didn't we?
Yeah.
See how it feels.
Mhm.
See what the resistance is.
Mhm.
So maybe with that exercise, we become just a tad skeptical about some idea we had about others and ourselves. And that's the whole point of if you understand the fifth agreement, be skeptical and learn to listen, you will see the truth doesn't come with words. The truth came with some other sense we had when we did that exercise. The exercise was about words, but the truth didn't really come with words, he suggests. It came with some other understanding of what came up for us. The truth is silent, he says. It's something that you just know, or you go, aha, or you realize when you're ready. It's something that you can feel without words. And he says it's called silent knowledge. We'll talk more about silent knowledge next week. So any closing comments before we close. Remember to do our donating giving. I put this up. Otherwise, we're ready to close. Any final shares before we close?
This is helpful.
Let's take 3 conscious breaths together. And with a deep in-breath. Shanti, shanti.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
You guys are wonderful. I appreciate coming
Hmm.
here. Thank you.
Have a good week.
Yep, everybody.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Bye-bye.